Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Room to Breathe podcast. You're joining me here for the second episode ever, which I'm so excited about. As always, I'm so happy to have you here. Please consider liking, following, and subscribing for more content like this. Also, if you enjoy this video, please leave a comment. I loved reading what you guys had to say last time. I also want to thank you guys so much for the support that you showed on my last video on YouTube, on TikTok, on Spotify. I'm so grateful that you took so much time to just listen to what I had to say. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for that. Today, we're going to be getting into something a bit different: the art of quitting, or in other words, giving up. I think life is just a constant battle of choosing whether to pivot or to persevere, regardless of what topic that we're talking about. Every day, we have the daily choice to quit or keep going with literally everything, whether that be our relationships, our passions, or our jobs. I feel like this free will is one of the toughest things that we have to manage in life because everything is a decision in our hands. We will never feel completely happy or satisfied with anything. There will be some point in our journey with a person or with a hobby or with a passion where we will feel unmotivated and we won't feel satisfied. There are low points for everything, pretty much, where we have to stop and reconsider whether it's a relationship or thing which is worth putting in the effort and time into. So today, I'm primarily going to be focusing on how to know when to give up on things that we love, our passions, our hobbies, etc. Sometimes we have to stay strong and keep going through a relationship or just a journey with a passion. Sometimes that thing may take away from our joy, our energy, and our happiness to the point where it's actually hurting us. Sometimes we might have to give up on those things, even if we love them. The ultimate decision is always in our hands. Should we keep going? Should we persevere through the pits of our journeys? Or should we learn to let go so we can embrace new opportunities? Obviously, the answer depends on the situation, but today I'm going to talk about unpacking signs that can help lead you to the right choice: persevere or pivot. So, to start this off, I want to talk more about the word quit and the stigma around it. So, textbook definition: to quit means to be removed from something, usually permanently. So, what I was thinking about is kind of that regardless of whether quitting in any situation is the right decision, it is always a risk. When we have the choice to let something go in our lives, it implies that we currently have it, and that is kind of a security that we have. Even if it's something toxic, something that's harming us, it is some form of stability in our lives. It's something that we've learned to live with, and in most situations, we've learned to love. I think that's why quitting is such a difficult thing. We have to envision our lives without something, even if it's painful, like a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship. So that's why I think there's such a stigma around quitting. I guess the word itself just strikes up this image of retreating, giving up because something was too much and because we couldn't handle it. I guess it's the epitome of failure. I don't think that any of these things are necessarily true. Letting things go is a really necessary thing in our lives, and sometimes it has the potential to do a lot of good. People quit their jobs and take the risk to start up a new business or brand because it's something that could be new and something that ignites that fire in their heart. People quit toxic relationships and leave back years of friendship and love because they respect themselves and they want to start new. Even though we're taking risks when we're taking steps back and letting go, there may be goodness and so many great things that can come and can only be unlocked when we actually make that decision. When it comes to something like a hobby that we used to love and we used to find so much joy in, it can obviously be so much harder to let go. Especially when it's something as like tiny as a hobby, it's something that we can never really see affecting our lives negatively, even if it really is. But something that I tend to forget is that we only have 24 hours in a day. Every single minute and second is a blessing that God has given us to do something. That can be to rest, to be productive, to be happy, to take a break, spend time with friends and family. I don't know, like whatever you like to do. I just think that we have to be picky and choosy about what we spend our time on, who we give our effort to, what we put our effort into, and what we spend our days and time on. I don't think that I am, sorry, I don't think that I am necessarily the world's most qualified person to be saying that because I'm literally the biggest procrastinator to ever walk this earth. But I do think that I have learned a lot over the years about giving up on things that I love and choosing what I should spend nurturing my time on instead. Today I kind of want to get more into that with two examples of my life, like two of my passions that I have thoroughly loved, both of these things that I have put a lot of effort and a lot of my heart into, and these are musical theater and just like writing in general. And one of these things I actually did decide to quit. Another one of them I wanted to quit, but I actually instead decided to nurture. So I will be going into the two of those and just kind of explaining what I learned and how I learned to decide to keep going on for one of them and let go of another one of them. At the end of the day, quitting something that is not allowing us to grow properly may give us the opportunity to start anew and have a fresh beginning. I was just talking about fresh starts, and I think one of the things that I've learned along the years is that you don't necessarily have to give up to have a fresh start. I think that I am just a person that is prone to giving up on some of my own projects and just not putting enough time or effort into it. Just as time goes on, I feel like the initial motivation and happiness that you have when you've started something just starts to go away. So I had this tendency just to give up on things, I guess, especially if they're just like a smaller project of mine that nobody else is really counting on. But to talk more about this, I want to get into a little bit of an example. Something that I've learned through one of my passions is that no matter how much you love something, the motivation for long term goals and projects will eventually dwindle away. No matter how much effort or excitement you have in that honeymoon or starting phase of your projects, there will always be a point where you will get so frustrated with insecurity or difficulty or something that's kind of just blocking you. These might seem like the most unproductive and darkest days of our entire journey through that project. But I've learned that the way that we navigate through these days, the hardest points, like, is the most important part. Sometimes they can teach us that we might need to give up on something, but more times than usual, it actually teaches us that we need to persevere and we need to keep going. So, in the summer of 2023, 2 years ago, I was going to be an incoming freshman. I just had this deep desire not to waste that summer, and obviously, I had some work to do for school and stuff and extracurriculars. But in my free time, I didn't want to just waste it away. I was so obsessed with this idea of finding my passion. After a lot of research, I realized that one of my passions, something that I can put a lot of my purpose into, is my writing. I've always loved writing. I've loved writing like little short stories since I was little, and poetry is just something that I've done since like very early middle school, like fifth or sixth grade. I never really took that idea and made it into a bigger project. That summer, I decided to start writing a book. A fantasy book because I love fantasy novels. I genuinely thought I could finish like a whole novel with all the plotting, all the planning, every single word within like a month during summer. Obviously, that didn't happen, and it's stretched out like as a very long project. I'm still working on it 2 years later. But I think my goal through that was just I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable of completing a project and making something that I could truly be proud of. I genuinely never felt happier like during summer than I felt during this period of time because I spent so much time and love into this project, and I was so sure that this would be like what made me proud of myself, what made me love myself, because I was so excited for this idea, loved all the characters that I made, loved all the world building, loved everything about it. That was the highest peak of my excitement. That was kind of just the calm before the storm, before I actually started having to put hard work into it and overcome the plot holes and the genuine frustrations. When I actually had to start writing, I felt so frustrated because I had this picture perfect idea of how the plot would go and how the characters would look and how everything would just be perfect in the first draft, and I could just edit a little bit and it would be done and I would need no help and I would just feel so proud of myself. Obviously, that is not how writing a book works. I had only had, like, I guess, experience writing short stories and poetry that only needed, like, a few couple of drafts and did not need that much time. When I actually had more time to write it in my breaks, like winter and summer 24 last year, when I actually started writing, I didn't really realize that my first draft is going to be horrendous. It's not going to look like what I've envisioned in my head. And it's definitely not going to look like my favorite books that are published and sitting on my shelves. It was something that was just so hard because I'm a perfectionist and I was so used to my writing just going very smoothly. But this time, it was like hellfire. Like, I had to rewrite this, rewrite that, change perspective, delete characters, delete scenes, and I barely got anywhere. I think this summer, as I've actually had time to continue that in my free time, it's been more of a reality check than anything because last summer I was just able to be like, okay, come on, keep going even if you feel like quitting. But this summer I've kind of realized that, like, dude, I thought I would finish this like before high school even started, and now I'm going to be going into 11th grade. When am I going to finish this? When am I going to have the time to publish it if I want to publish it? Am I even going to make it to the end of the first draft? All of these things were clouding my mind this summer. All of these things were stopping me from actually doing my job of writing, and it just twisted my head because I was so frustrated already with the writing portion of the first draft, and then I was more frustrated with the pace of how it was going. And literally, I was this close to giving up on it pretty much like every single day, or like every time I opened that document. I thought of quitting because I thought it didn't make me happy anymore. I was so disheartened by it not being perfect that I thought that I couldn't manage it or finish it. But really, the reason that I wanted to quit was mainly because it was difficult. There were multiple points in my life where, or just in the writing process, where I sat down like almost every night and it was like, okay, this is it. I think genuinely I'm never going to finish this. It's never going to get published. It's never going to see past the first draft. It's over. And every time I thought that, there was just something in my head that was like, no. I never believed myself. I was like, no, that's not happening. I could never fully accept the idea of fully quitting it, no matter how hard it got for me, and no matter how much I absolutely hated the process. I think that this is because even now, even though I created all of this 2 years ago, it is still something that I love so deeply, even though I don't feel the same way I felt about it in that little honeymoon phase. Just like a relationship, love is not going to be always in that honeymoon stage of completely being in awe of what you've created. Love is actually choosing to fight through the hard parts. My subconscious didn't let me let go of that book because in reality, I couldn't see myself going on without the hope of that book being there, without just the stability of that book being there. Even though time has changed so many things, time will never change the love that I had for that story and the passion that went into that story, even if it does change the feelings that I hold towards it sometimes. But I think the main issue with this particular situation is that I had so many high expectations for this story and the first draft, as well as what I expected it to mean to me. It's something that I was this close to quitting just because it was tough, but still a part of me hung on for some reason. My gut was telling me no. I think this was because it wasn't something that was hurting me. It was just an obstacle that I needed to learn to get over. So I just wanted to start off by something that I actually didn't leave because I'm going to be getting into something that I did leave. I don't necessarily want to promote the idea of leaving something every time a situation gets hard. Rather, I want to promote the idea of kind of stepping back and introspecting instead. I just try to give myself, especially when I'm frustrated with my book, an allotted period of time where I do other things, where I read books, and I guess try to do something different that ignites that old flame that was once inside of me. So if you're struggling with this idea and your gut is telling you that you should hang on, or even if it's telling you not to, I still think that you should take this break to introspect, try to get deeper into something related to that, or maybe something else that might ignite that same fire. Just give yourself a little bit of space to relax and actually think about what you're doing. I realized at the end of the day that the reason that I was hanging on to this book was because of how much I love reading. My desire in writing this was wanting to ignite the same feeling of getting lost in the pages and getting lost in another dimension that I feel when I'm reading some of my favorite fantasy books. I want to evoke that in somebody else. So if you have a passion or a relationship that you're necessarily on the fence about or you're not sure what to do, I would advise you to ask your friend what they feel about it. I'm not saying let your friends make your decisions for you, but I think getting insight from the people that are closest to you that just kind of see you every single day and are kind of from like an outside perspective, that can really just be eye-opening. I talked to my best friend about the situation that I just told you guys about. This is when I was so frustrated with a lot of things in my life, so I was kind of just ranting about everything. My best friend isn't a reader. She's very athletic, and we actually have a lot of different interests and tastes. But she was the one who was there with me when I first developed the plot, and she listened to me when I rambled excitedly on and on about my characters. She also was there with me when that joy and passion sometimes faded away, so she saw it from an outside view. When I finished talking, she told me that she saw this pattern within me and my own expectations. She reminded me that this project started out as something that I wanted to do for myself, but I just became so caught up with this idea of publication and finishing it that I forgot that I was doing this because creating things is great. I was tying my entire identity around this book and this idea of it being great. And if it's not great, that meant that I would be a failure. Basically, my point is that my outlook on it was unhealthy rather than the actual process taking joy from my life. It was just how I looked at it. My best friend didn't tell me to quit, and she didn't tell me to keep going either. She just gave me her 2 cents, and that meant a lot. So, likewise, if you have a friend, just ask them what they think about the situation, and you might get a lot of insight from that. I want to move into the most important section for this topic, and it's going to get more into when I genuinely think that you should quit and when quitting is the right option. So, this section is titled, Why Do You Want to Give Up? For the example of my book, I wanted to give up because the journey was not what I expected, and I tied my identity around it. I lost the real reason that I genuinely wanted to keep on going. But for something else in my life that I had to face the same process of should I quit or should I stay? I kind of had a different reason on why I wanted to give up. It wasn't just my outlook on it, it was how it made me feel. So I love musical theater. I have loved musical theater ever since I was like in middle school, ever since I was younger. Like in middle school, like I dabbled a little bit in it, but in freshman year, I genuinely like actually started to take the class and I was so excited to learn more about acting. And the thing is that I could never really be 100% in this world of theater at my school. I never had time with my extracurriculars and my studies to actually join the after school play. Theater was something that I loved the idea of. Even though I loved it so much, it did bring me a lot of anxiety because it wasn't something that I was super good at first, and I didn't have many friends in the beginning. Over time, I actually got better at it and I just started to love it a lot. It became something that I used to enjoy and kind of just a dream of mine to actually partake in one of the plays, be on stage. I think the reason that it did bring me anxiety though is because it felt really isolating in my experience, since I didn't have like 100% immersion into the community, I felt rather alone at times, even if like in the second year I had like a bunch of friends that I really loved. I didn't really feel like I was a part of that entire world. I felt like, I guess, like for lack of a better analogy, I was peering into the window of somebody else's life. And all I wanted to do was just to break through that window and get into the house. That's something that I could not do because I didn't have the time, but this idea of actually being in the play and fully being immersed in the world of theater was something that I wanted to cling on to because it's just something that I loved and I loved the idea of. I saw my peers on the stage at school putting in all this effort and dedication and love into it, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. When the musical for this year, like that just ended, it came along, I wanted nothing more than to actually try out and maybe be a part of that play. I think at some point last year, I also had to shake myself and realize no matter what other people were telling me, you can find a balance, follow your heart. I had to ignore all of that and kind of just realize that the bleak reality had always been that I could not keep up my mental health if I did land a role and if I did genuinely like fully immerse myself into theater. Just staying back at school for like multiple hours, coupled with like the hour-long drive back to my home, my extracurriculars, and also all of my studies and homework, it was just something that could not be possible, even though I wanted it so bad. I knew that if I joined this, something would have to give. And if that something was my grades, that would just break me. I would not be able to give my 100% to the play if I did get in, nor would I be able to give it to any other aspects of my life, because it was just literally physically impossible for someone like me to manage all of that. I kind of came to that realization in the middle of last year, and I think I still did keep sticking to the hope that I could live this life of keeping one foot in theater and just not be completely in it. I think the breaking point where I realized that it had to be all or nothing was when I volunteered for that show that I just told you about, the spring musical. So basically, I had to go in every single night of the show and be there the whole time and just help volunteer. The first time I watched this show, I think, is when this reality kind of hit me. It was a very beautiful show, just a really, really amazing show, but it was a very silly and happy musical. The ending number was, I still remember, Don't Stop Believing, and it was just the peak of this happiness and passion, and you could just see all of the hard work and just love. You could just see it exude through the peers of mine on stage. And I was just sitting there in the back of the audience, alone, in my seat, and I started crying during this happy number. Like literally tears down my face. This was so embarrassing. Like literally my teacher was next to me and like a minute later she was like, "Okay, Shreya, let's go clean up now." And like I was like, "Get it together. She's gonna start talking to you." And I was like you know that trick where you pinch the skin between your pointer finger and your thumb? Like I was doing that to try to stop crying, and it was just very pathetic. But yeah, it was just very embarrassing. She didn't see me crying, obviously, but like I was just sitting there, like at my grown age, crying over a happy song in a happy musical. After everything, I got in the car and I cried the entire car ride home. I was like genuinely just sobbing. This was like kind of weird for me. I'm a very emotional person, but I next to never cry. And honestly, if someone plays that same exact song, I will just be really sad and I probably would start tearing up again. That sounds so dramatic, but that is the extent of my feelings because theater is something that I still do love, and I won't stop loving it or stop being entranced when I see a show sitting in the audience. But the reason that I cried in that moment is because I realized that I could not do this to myself next year. I understood that I would never be able to give theater my 100%. But if I just gave my 50%, if I wouldn't be able to participate in the play, if I just had to sit in the audience and toy with the idea of one day being one of the people on that stage, that would break me completely because I know that would never happen. That is something that I could not handle. I guess it's kind of like, again, another analogy. It's just realizing that there's like a hangnail on your finger. I guess I had to come to the conclusion that this hangnail, which is theater, would never mend or never stop hurting unless I completely ripped it off. I could rip it off halfway, but it would still keep hurting. The skin would never heal. So I ripped it off, and ripping it off hurt. The scar will be there, but if I just left that hangnail hanging there, it would have hurt throughout the entire 2 years left in my high school life. So, crazy ramble slightly over, and we're going to be pulling back into the topic. But the reason I wanted to give up is, though I knew I loved it, just like I loved writing, I knew it was hurting me too. And why was it hurting me? That's because I had zero room to grow. I would stay in the same spot while watching my peers grow and just achieve the dreams that I know I could not really get in that situation. I love my friends in theater so much and I will continue to support them, watch their shows, etc. But I realized that in participating in that world in the class, I was just being foolish. It was hurting me instead of letting me grow and spend my time on other things, things that would genuinely help me and make me feel fulfilled. Running away and letting go was hard. I had to deliver this news that I wouldn't be returning to some of my greatest friends who I loved sharing the class with, and I had to let them down. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was letting go of something that I know I could have been great at, and something that I gave so much of my effort to. I don't think it will be something that I can just magically stop caring about and magically stop or start being nonchalant about. I probably sound so crazy, but it is something that was so deeply rooted in my life for such a long period of time, and it was such a big dream that I had. Next school year, when I see the play and stuff, I do think I'll feel emotional. And I will feel that, but I know that I have made the right decision for myself. Yes, I loved theater, but love can be toxic. Love can be there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that something is good or right. My friends all agree that in that period of time when I was just involved in theater, I wasn't my happiest or my best. That's because it never really fulfilled me. I can appreciate the things I've learned, the passions I've explored, the teachers I've had, and the friendships I've had, but I do think I was holding myself back by just sticking to that idea and that false hope. Obviously, my examples were very silly, but I think at the end of the day, it does all just come down to reasoning. And even if your situation is very different from both of my situations, I think it all comes down to the same thing. Making this choice between letting go and holding on is difficult, but this distinction between reasoning is so important. Why do you want to give up? Is it just a momentary frustration that you can get over? Or is it because this dream is something that is holding you back from a future that could be so much better? I do think that we should just all take the time to have a breather and to introspect. Decisions like this can't just be made in a night, but this time of relaxation may lead us to a new outlook on the same hobby or maybe to a new path and might just encourage us to let go. We don't have to stick with things that we once used to love just because we're used to it. These things, although they seem tiny, have the power to slowly bring us down or likewise lift us up. One thing a friend reminded me is that it's so important to prioritize ourselves and our own mental health. My friend told me this when I was kind of struggling with this idea of theater because a lot of my friends wanted me to stay and I just felt so bad just kind of leaving them there because we had built such a strong connection. No matter how much I felt bad, I knew that I had to take this decision because I knew it's something that I couldn't keep doing to myself. I want to end on a positive note though, even if you do decide to give up on the thing that you love. Something that I think we need to remember during this time of bleakness is that quitting doesn't mean quitting and giving up on yourself. I think quitting can be a way to reclaim time and energy that was once ours. I'm a firm believer that we should not waste the time and let go of our lives and mental health when we quit something else. We should use that extra time to just work on ourselves, find new passions, new things that ignite a spark in us, and ways to be productive. Quitting might seem like we're shutting off a door to ourselves. It might seem like failure, but I think we have to look at it differently. Just because our dreams and our perspectives have changed doesn't mean that we can't find the same happiness, joy, or passion through something else. We have the choice to shut the doors on ourselves, so we have to take steps to make sure that we're actually growing and not falling into a rut or a hole when we've let go of something that we love so much, which can be such a hard thing. I think the main thing for me is just time. Time is the greatest healer. That's so cliche, but it's so true. It will mend things that nothing else can. No matter how much letting go may hurt, over time that ache will subside. But we have to take care of ourselves even when things look bleak because, we can't just give up on our own lives. I think taking time to ourselves during this period, practicing self-care, hanging out with our friends, and doing things that we love can help us get over the after effects of letting go of something that was so dear to us, and hopefully pave the way of finding something that is much better. You're not alone through this time period. Definitely try to rely on the support of your friends, your family, everybody that cares about you. I'm sure there are also a bunch of support groups out there online if you're interested in that. When I was researching this video, there are just so many threads on Reddit and Twitter. I don't think Twitter actually. I think just Reddit. But on Reddit and stuff that kind of are just full of these communities of people that are going through the same thing. So if that's something that's appealing to you, that's something that's definitely available. And then I think just distracting yourself from it sometimes. I think just letting go sometimes. Enjoying the moment with your friends, just getting a breather can honestly just be the best help that you can give yourself. I think the biggest thing for me is just remembering that God has a plan for all of us. I think you guys know I'm a Christian, but I just believe that He has created us all so beautifully. He has put so much purpose into our lives, and all of our passions, our hobbies, He's gifted them to us. And I think that they're there for a reason. When one door closes, I believe that another door will open. That even when things don't go our way, there still will be happiness. Even if it doesn't measure up to our own expectations, it will be something that is much greater and something that we would never have even thought of. Having faith in that has really helped me. So that's a wrap for today. I hope you guys have liked this video. It was a lot of me just kind of rambling about my own experiences, but I hope that this has brought some insight or something that I said could have resonated with you. Very soon with a new video, and hopefully we can go over a bunch of more interesting things, and very soon there will be some special guests on the podcast, so look out for that as well. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to this point. I am so grateful for you and all of your support. That just makes my entire day. If I've just even reached one person who has liked this video even a little bit, that just warms my heart so much. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. That's it for now. Bye.